Hey everyone, I'm Dawn, also known as Dragon Rider. I wanted to really do a deep dive into the deck that I took to Legend this season, which is Fell Demon Hunter. I played a little over 100 games, went into Legend, entered around 500, and had a 60% win rate through those bit over 100 games. So it was really, really solid. And I want to talk about the win conditions, mulligans, the matchups, and really deep dive into that. And then show you some gameplay where I was talking through my decisions. So let's get into it. So here you can see two of the somewhat popular deck lists. I'll have those codes in the description below for you as well. LDH kind of has two win conditions, and one of them is going for the fell spells themselves, burst damage with fell spells, and then playing Jace to basically replay all of those spells. The second win condition is with the Kurtrus hero card. And that is after you have played that, you have that new, better hero power, and you can play the Fellfire Deadeye and Expendable Performers, trade in a bunch of 1/1s, and then be able to hero power in between every attack and hit your opponent for a huge swing with your hero itself. Really, in a lot of matchups, you kind of can win either way, unless your opponent really isn't playing minions, then you kind of can't actually go in on the Fellfire, Deadeye plus Performers because there's not going to be minions to trade into. So you have to lean a little bit more into the Fell spells and Jace. Let's take a look at some matchups. The best matchups for you as the Fell Demon Hunter are going to be decks like Face Hunter, Taunt Druid, or like the Aggro Druid, Shadow Priest. So all of those aggressive decks that really just want to get on board and kill you with their minions. You're also going to be really well situated against Quest Handlock. And honestly, I also had a lot of success against Quest Shamans. The reason why you're good against these decks is because you have so many tools and resources to repeatedly clear their minions, gain health at the same time that you're clearing, and also stall them out of stuff while you kind of do whatever you want and start digging through your deck. And then into things like the Quest Handlock and even Quest Shaman, you're going to spend the first part of the game kind of wanting to search your deck and build up to finding either one of your win conditions, because one thing about like the Quest Handlock and Quest Shaman deck, as opposed to those more aggressive decks, is you kind of have some time to either find your spells and then play Jace, or you have time to build up your Deadeye Performers combo, and then they're going to play some big minions that you can just trade into. Now, the bad matchups are Libram Paladin, Ramp Druid, Miracle and Quest Priests, Control Warrior, Buff Paladins, and Beast Hunters. So the commonality and the reason why these are the bad matchups for you is, in most cases, the minions that your opponent is playing, they have way too much health. You just can't get through all of those health. There's a lot of taunts, so it slows down the damage that you can put towards their face with some of your fell spells. And even with spell damage and your removal, you just don't have enough to get through their big minions. You can sometimes get wins by, kind of like I said with the Handlock and the Quest Shaman, you can kind of wait until they play some of those big minions, but it doesn't always work out if they have consistent threats throughout the game, because by the time that you get to your Fellfire Deadeye Performers combo, you're going to be dead to their big minions that are hitting you in the face repeatedly. And one of the big issues with like the Ramp Druids, Control Warrior, and the Libram Paladin are one of two things: huge amounts of armor that you just can't work through. And the second one is things like Bulwark of Azeroth that makes it really difficult to also punch through in one big swing. And also kind of the same concept against Paladin once they have the Cariel hero out. You have to do multiple big swings, and it's just usually not enough because you might be able to build up and push 24, 26 damage, but then they're only going to take 13 and not 26. So that half damage, Bulwark of Azeroth, huge amounts of armor are just very detrimental to Fel Demon Hunter. So those are what are going to make it really bad for you to be able to try to actually close out the game. Well, now let's take a look at the mulligans, and I'm going to go over a couple of cards that are pretty good no matter really what the matchup is, and a couple scenarios with those, and I'll talk about versus aggressive decks and versus slower decks. And in the mulligan, I think these are the common cards that you really can keep in most cases. In most cases, you can keep Chaos Strike. The Chaos Strike is just a pretty great card. It kind of does all the things that you want to be doing. Illidari Studies as well is a pretty decent card that can find you stuff, can discount your skull. I don't necessarily keep it all of the time, but speaking of skull, if I do have Illidari Studies and skull, especially if you're on coin, that is usually fantastic. If you have skull in a spot that's pretty easy to outcast it, so if it's already all the way to the left, or even maybe one space away from the far left, you can keep a skull generally, unless you're against a super aggressive deck and you don't have coin. You might not want to keep skull in that case. You really need to make sure you're not going to die, because against some aggressive decks, you could die before turn 6. Finding Chaos Strikes, finding the studies, and discounting your skulls. And also, in some cases, a lot of cases, you can keep Fellgorger. It does a lot of things as well. It puts a body on the board to either contest what your opponent is doing or to start pushing pressure. It finds you a Fel spell, it discounts it, and if you're on coin, you can get it out on turn 3. So Fellgorger is also pretty great. I would say unless you're against a super aggressive deck, it's probably fine. If you are against a really aggressive deck, you have to be able to play the Fellgorger early and guarantee that you're going to find a wide board removal, which isn't guaranteed. So to me, Fellgorger is generally one that if I know I'm against a really aggressive deck like Face Hunter, I really don't probably keep that. And the last one is the Kurtrus Hero. Now, this one, again, kind of the same concept. If I don't have coin and I'm against a really aggressive deck, I don't like to keep Kurtrus personally, but in a lot of cases, you can keep it. It's a mid-game win condition, one of the win conditions for the deck. It helps make sure that you have that already set up before you get to the Felfire or Deadeye Performers combo. And even partway through the game, it does give you 2 rush minions that you can start using to clear the board. And generally, because they're at that 4 health, a lot of cases, they can be a 2-for-1. You're going to be able to trade into something, and your minion is likely still going to live to be able to kill something off, or that your opponent has to then trade in to your minion or use a spell. So I do actually like the Kurtrus Hero as well, especially if you have coin. Now, if you are against those aggressive decks that I keep talking about, they're going to be on board, they're going to be pushing pressure, they're going to get minions early. You really want removal. That's the big thing. Like removal, removal, removal. Get those spells: Immolation Aura, Fel Barrage, Fel Scream Blast, Chaos Leech. Even your Warblades is great. Again, the Chaos Strike, you can be able to take something out with that and draw a card at the same time to replace itself. I will also say Fel Barrage, Immolation Aura are both fantastic against Trogs. So if you are seeing the turn 1, turn 2 Trogs, those are fantastic. The Kurtrus Hero, you can also keep that. Again, if you're not on coin and you don't have anything else going on in your hand, I probably wouldn't keep Kurtrus. But if you have some early removal, you have maybe 1 or 2 removal things, and you have coin, I would definitely recommend keeping Kurtrus there. Now, versus lower decks, you're going to want to focus on draw, your draw mechanics. So you want to find Chaos Strikes. Again, Chaos Strikes is fantastic. Skulls, Illidari Studies that can help you find even more draw or discount your skull. Against those slower decks too, if you find the Fellgorgers, not only are you going to be able to draw your Fel things, but you can start to apply a little bit of pressure either with the Fellgorger itself or some of those attack-focused spells like the Chaos Strike. You can start pushing pressure on your opponent's face if they're a little bit of a slower deck to make it a little bit easier when you go for a big swing turn later. And before we jump into the gameplay, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown, I would really appreciate a thumbs up so that others can find this as well. And I hope you enjoy the gameplay. Okay, do we think it's a ramp druid again? All right. I think it's gonna be ramp druid, and then I'm gonna be really sad, especially if they have solar Cenarian ward. Please don't do it. Don't do. Panda's not terrible. If it is like beast druid or something, then the Arcanist Spell Scream is nice. Oh, okay. It is not ramp druid. That's so good for me. Just whack into that. Hey, D-Style! And as we got everybody here, thanks so much for hanging out, everybody. I hope you all are having a good weekend so far. And if you aren't, well, I hope that, I hope I can help make it a little better. Okay, see? This is great, right? We just go Arcanist Fellscream. They have a 1/1 in their hand. Not gonna let them have board. Yeah, this matchup into ramp is really bad though. It's really rough. Unless you can somehow be super aggressive, which is hard to do. I feel like I just have to use that. I'm not gonna let them have board. 10 quals. Yeah. Okay, this always gives me something good, right? Relation aura. Oh! It's too good! We did it! Okay. Whew. Sorry for that. Rip headphone users. You have played in 12 so far. Oh yeah. Okay, so this weekend started the first set of qualifying for... We're now in the qualifying period for Masters Tour number 2. So good. Okay. Composting. First thing, oh, they're in a bad spot. The I-beam. The I-beam. Gosh. Oh, Pixafan, hello. How was this deck? This deck has been fantastic, actually. I've really enjoyed this deck. I could check my stats after this, but I've played it for most of the month. I think I'm around 60% win rate with it.